What can you share about the Novation pitch? Like, how would you go about it?
You have to.
Everybody that went from wholesaling to full-on Novations failed.
So he showed me like the idea of pursuing excellence and wanting to be the best. I learned a ton there, and that's where I developed my Novation pitch and everything that's fairly similar to what I do today.
How do you do that?
It's difficult, but there's a framework for it where basically
Let's say Novations does get regulated. What's the backup plan?
it's a much more irresistible value proposition. You don't need to believe in a lot of things. I think you just need to believe in a few important things very deeply.
What are the highest leverage actions and things you can do right now to scale the business? Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Ben, CEO and founder here at Bolt Deals, and today I'm joined with a very, very special guest. We got Rich Wonders, the Novation King. How are you doing today, sir?
Great, man.
Great. So
It's
first,
great to meet you.
dude, I know we had multiple conversations over Zoom regards to what you do, and I absolutely love what you're doing. I remember how you came up. So pretty much I want to start from where you started. And at least from what we've seen, you posted a post this morning that you came from door-to-door sales. Can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing, how you went from doing door-to-door selling vacuums to this fucking 8,000 square foot
It's like
penthouse?
7,100,
7,100 square foot penthouse in Phoenix.
Tempe, Arizona.
In Tempe, Arizona. My bad. To me, it's the same thing, right?
For sure.
So I'd love to hear your journey, how you got here.
Yeah, so selling vacuums door to door. I sold Kirby vacuums.
Okay.
I found myself selling Kirby vacuums because before that I was working at a recording studio.
Okay.
Had a girlfriend at the time. I wasn't making very much money. Doing the recording studio thing. Found out, she was messing around with the neighbor. She kicked me out, and I found myself sleeping on the floor at the recording studio at night, right? I'd work, they'd let me work through the night, and I'd just work there, get some sleep in.
You didn't own this place?
The recording studio? No.
Oh, okay.
I had an apartment recording studio, but once I was kicked out, that was done with, right?
Were you a rapper? What were you doing?
No, I made beats and I recorded people.
Oh, so you're like a producer?
Yeah, producer, engineer. Like I went to the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences for that, and that was my big dream. Linked up with some people that had bought a bunch of equipment. Yeah. They were into some unsavory things, and the guy ended up going to prison. And I started working this place called Tall Cat Studios.
Okay.
And once the thing happened with my then girlfriend, I didn't have a place to stay. I was sleeping on the floor. My buddy David Valentine ended up taking me in once he found out what was going on. And I was there for maybe 2 months, and then he was like, "Well, bro, these bills are billing every month, and you're not contributing anything. Like, what about a job, right?"
Yeah.
So that's how I fell into Kirby. It was the first ad I answered off Craigslist, and that ended up being like a huge blessing because the guy I worked for was just a really good businessman. And he was a really good communicator, a great salesman. He had great processes. He was making several $1 million a year selling these.
Selling vacuums?
Selling the vacuums.
Wow. Or having you guys sell the vacuums.
Exactly. Yeah. He wasn't selling them, but he was great at recruiting. He was great at motivating. The sales training was on point.
What makes you say he's great at recruiting? I want to dive into that. Like, in your opinion, what makes somebody a good recruiter or a good leader or manager in general?
Well, I mean, just what made him a great recruiter was they were constantly recruiting.
Okay.
They were great at putting out ads. Their top end of the funnel, they brought a lot of people in. And it was funny, the ad I answered was like, set up and demonstrate home appliances, right? It was like, make up to, I forget what it said, maybe $5,000 a month, apply today. And when I called in, it was just like, they got me down to the office that day. So it was the first place I called. I had my interview, went down there. They gave me a hard time, right? Acted like they weren't going to hire me.
Yeah.
But then they're like, all right, we'll give you a chance, right?
Yeah.
And I later found out that was all part of the thing.
Commission-based too?
It was, you got a draw starting off. So I think you made like $500 a week, but it was like a draw on your commission.
Yeah, on your commissions, yeah.
And you had to hit certain benchmarks, certain KPIs to get that, right? But long story short, I did that. I ended up doing that for 9 years. And because they had incentive trips, you could be a team leader. And I had my own office for like 2 years, but I ended up crashing and burning on that. I hated it because I had to bring in all my own leads. And I ended up just going back and being a salesman with him. And
with this Kirby guy?
Yeah.
Kirby vacuums. Okay.
Yeah. So, that was my first real step in entrepreneurship, was opening up that office, right? And I recruited all my own guys, but I hated the lifestyle.
What do you mean?
I hated having all these people counting on me. I hated going out and trying to find my leads every day and knocking the doors. We were cleaning people's houses, all day. It was a grind.
What is a demo selling vacuums like? I've never sold anything. Well,
Yeah.
that's a lie. I used to be a Boy Scout, right?
Yeah.
And we would go sell popcorn, and my sister would sell Girl Scout cookies. So I'm
Nice.
curious, what is a demo like for selling Kirby vacuums? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So we would go in there. They would think, the reason we were there was to give them a free cleaning, right? Or
Oh.
to give them like a small gift.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it was a really weird setup, right? Where they didn't really know what was going on. And we
Yeah.
had to just like charm our way into buying more time.
Yeah.
But we'd set up the box, I'd pull the machine out, tell them about the machine, put it together. And then we had these little filters that would show the dirt that we got out of everything. So we'd vacuum their couch. Like, oh my gosh, did you know that was in there? Of course not. Hey, if you had a way to get this
Oh.
out, it wouldn't even be in there. Like there was all these little sales zingers and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I learned a ton. I learned a ton about persevering, how to agreeably disagree, how to get people to like me. Because if they kicked you out of the house, you had to wait for your crew chief, which is what we called our team leaders, to come and pick you back up. You know what I mean? But he'd have like 4 or 5 different guys. So like if you get kicked out too, like you're not a high priority to go pick up, because it's like, dang, you messed up, right?
Yeah.
So it was a very high pressure environment that taught me a ton, right? But how I got into real estate was after I'd already failed at my own operation. I had been working for him for must have been maybe 3 years or so, right?
The still Kirby vacuums guy.
Selling the Kirby vacuums,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
And I had my now wife was living with me.
Okay.
She had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and then we were expecting our first together.
Wow.
Right? So, and then that's when I was telling you earlier, I saw my boy JR taking all these crazy vacations.
Oh,
and
right. Okay.
This was someone I got in trouble with as a kid, where we kind of came from
Are you
the same
sharing
bad.
the trouble you guys went into?
Yeah,
Just a
I
little
mean,
bit of
dude, we were bad kids. Like we were, 11, 12 years old, smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, drinking, running around on our bikes, trespassing places we shouldn't have been, getting into trouble.
I feel like that's every most, I should say, little kids. Like I was running around trespassing houses and stuff.
It's so wild because I have a 13-year-old now, and I'm just like, I couldn't imagine her doing the things that we did at that age.
I see what you're saying.
It's like, no, totally. In my generation, that was like a pretty normal thing too. You know what I mean? Well, at least it seemed normal because that's what everyone around me was doing. But I saw him taking all these crazy vacations and stuff, and I asked him what he was doing because I thought he was a realtor. I found out he was wholesaling houses. And then that's what made me dive into the YouTube rabbit hole. And that's where I found Sean Terry, where his sales process was so similar to how I had sold these Kirby's. And like the things he was saying were all things that I already knew were true. I was like, dude, I know this works because I was always a top performer at Kirby, right? So I reached out to him on Instagram and just cold DM'd him and basically just told him my background and, with being a top performer and how hard we worked at Kirby. I was like, hey, if you give me a shot, you know what I mean? I'll work for free if I have to. I believe in what you're doing. And I eventually, bugged him enough and he gave me an interview.
Perseverance,
And then eventually got hired there.
You mentioned you were a top performer selling Kirby vacuums. Is that the name of the vacuums?
The vacuum is Kirby, yeah. It's a big
like a
metal
brand.
vacuum.
Oh.
And it was in some old cartoon movie, but if you saw one, a lot of people were like, oh yeah, my grandma had one of those. But it's a $3,000
For a vacuum?
machine
What the hell?
that cleans the whole house. Yeah, we sold them on payment plans.
Oh, shit. I don't know. Wow, okay. So you were a top performer at Kirby selling vacuums, and you said you were a top performer with Sean as well? Is that what you said?
Yeah, well, yeah. So when I started working for Sean, within, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 months, something like that, me and him kept talking, and he was really focused in on his coaching business. His coaching business was doing very well, and I was just telling him some of the things that I'd seen in Kirby on how we scaled, how they scaled that out.
Yeah.
And he ended up giving me, some authority to try to build out the sales department. And he made me like a sales manager.
I want to take a step back. When you said you were a top performer at Kirby selling vacuums, what do you think made you the top performer there?
Well, I was extremely hungry. Coming in, I had nothing. Like I didn't have a car. I was sleeping on my friend's floor. And like the thought of getting another job was like, oh man, you know what I mean? Because I saw too that there was upside there. There's some guys that had nicer cars, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe like a new Mustang or something, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm like, dude, they're all doing better than me.
Yeah.
And he really pushed on the personal development things. That's when I first learned about Think and Grow Rich, Richest Man in Babylon. And he gave these passionate speeches where he was like a second father to a lot of the people there, myself included. Like I lost my dad when I was 12, right? And he was just a really good, strong, he was the first like businessman that I met that was like a multimillionaire and wanting to give me advice. And a lot of the advice he gave us was really good advice.
Gotcha. The reason I asked you that is because somebody watching this might want something better for themselves. Maybe they're not, do they still sell vacuums like that? I have no idea.
There's some offices, but it's really fizzled out. And the guy that I worked for is no longer in the business.
Oh, why do you think that happened?
He got in trouble with for doing all the cold calling. Calling the do not call list.
Oh, got it. Okay.
He had a phone room that set most of our appointments, and he kept getting fines, and eventually they just like fully came after him, and he had to just shut it down.
Gotcha. And the reason why I asked about having drive, what makes somebody a good salesperson, is because somebody's watching this, and they are, let's just say they're in a 9-to-5 right now. Nothing wrong with it because we all start somewhere, right? I'm trying to figure out what can we tell them, because to them, they have an excuse like, oh, I have kids, I don't have enough time, I need to put food on the table. So like, what are some because it sounds like you've gone through that, right? So what would you tell somebody there to sort of like motivate them that their current situation doesn't have to be their goal or where they end up?
So a big thing is getting around people that you admire and respect, that you can, and that are going the direction that you want to go, and figuring out how you can add value to what they have going on, and they in turn can add value to what you're going into. Like the vehicle that you're in is so important. And like with Kirby's, like selling the vacuums, like I maxed that out. And I knew like the only way to make more money was to build my own office. I already tried that, and I knew that wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
So when I got into real estate, I went to go look for like basically the top performer, which was to me was Sean Terry, because that's who I knew from YouTube and everything. And like I do not regret for a moment like working for him. Like I give him all the credit. Like his sales process was killer. You know what I mean? He had the leads there for me. Like it was a great environment where I could learn and earn at the same time. And that was a huge game changer, because I already know if I would have tried wholesaling on my own, I would have failed. Because I failed after 2 years of experience. You know what I mean? Like I was telling you before, where I had to go work for someone else.
Yeah. So tell us about that experience. So you quit working with Sean Terry, and then you started your own operation. What happened there?
So, when I left there, and I actually was fired, right? I did like a tentative. Me and him disagreed on a hire, right? Okay. And I said, basically threw something in his face on one of his hires that he had made, which was disrespectful and was wrong of me, right? And then told him, hey, I'm not sure if I can continue here, if you don't trust my judgment after everything that I've done. And, I brought in like $360K that month. So I was God's gift to wholesale in my mind, you know what I mean? And
I see.
I thought he needed me more than I needed him. And I found out I was wrong, you know what I mean? And he didn't need me at all, you know what I mean? I needed him totally. And, he told me that we had to part ways after that interaction. And I had my big check coming in from all the deals that I did. And then I went out, I set up my own PPC. And I was like, all right, now it's time to make it big, right? And I got some deals done, but I moved to a bigger house.
Lifestyle inflation.
Yeah, my lifestyle inflated. And then I found out that at the time, I was the type of guy, if I had someone I was trying to impress, like trying to impress Sean or try to impress Don, who was the guy I worked for at Kirby, like I would work so much harder. But when it was just me and no one was watching, like I didn't have the same motivation.
It's accountability.
And yeah, and I just kind of like slowly fizzled out, and I just found myself less and less excited to get up and work every day. And there's days where I would just like stare at the wall and just feel like the weight of the world was on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And I was getting some deals done, but my money just was dwindling down. It was going out faster than it was coming in.
Yep.
And Brandon Simmons, who we were talking about, mutual
Great
friend,
guy.
right? Me and him had been doing a few deals together. And I told him my situation, and he introduced me to a couple of the big wholesalers out here. And I ended up working for Corey Geary.
Yep.
And that's where I learned Novations and like completely changed the trajectory of my life. Like that failure on my own is what led to ultimately the thing that completely revolutionized like my life and my perception from people. And like I call myself the Novation King.
Yeah.
There was no Novations. It would have been something completely different,
Absolutely, absolutely. So you branch from, or what's his name? Simmons introduces you to Novation.
To Corey Geary.
Corey Geary.
Where I learned
So
Novations.
you worked for him. So tell us about what that was like when you were, because we were speaking earlier. You said they had a bunch of team members. They fired everybody, and it was just you and another guy. So tell us about that experience.
Well, so they were actively doing Novations when I came on, and he was running PPC.
Okay.
But there wasn't like a big there wasn't a structure like I was used to in Kirby and like kind of how I built with Sean, right? So yeah, and like the way we were doing Novations is much different than how we do it now. Like all the things that I preach against, like never use flat fee broker.
Why
we
not?
only used.
Why not? Because transparently,
Yeah.
somebody watching this might not know anything about Novations. I don't know much about Novations. I just know that you sell deals on the MLS and the assignment fees are double what they are wholesaling. So can you sort of walk us through? Let's start with the pitfalls and big mistakes that people make with Novations.
Yeah, so with Novations, you can sell houses that are in nicer condition that normally wouldn't work for wholesale, right? And you can also work in smaller towns where there's no cash buyers. Like Novation fills in almost all the gaps of the motivated sellers that don't work for wholesale, right? So if they want to sell, need to sell, they have problems, but there's not a cash buyer either available or a cash buyer would have to be unreasonably low for the condition. We can basically make a net offer to them and explain we're going to resell it to a third party. And then we can hire a realtor and give them a hands-off experience. And then we make the difference between what we promise them and what we end up selling it for.
So how does the process work? So is it like a wholesale where you get it under contract with the seller for $100K and then, you list it on the MLS for like $150K and you make that difference after you pay?
Whatever's left over, you get to keep between what you promised them and what you
So is it under contract or how's that work?
Yeah, it's so you get the property under contract. You have the purchase and sale agreement.
Okay, so it's similar to wholesale.
Yep. You have a novation indemnification agreement, which basically instructs the title company what to do if the third-party buyer is using a loan.
Third-party buyers as in the end buyer?
Correct.
Okay, so it's typically like a retail buyer or something.
Yeah, normally.
Okay.
And then we use an attorney in fact to hire the realtor.
What do you
So
mean?
an attorney in fact is similar to a power of attorney. But like when I first learned them, we were using flat fee brokers, so there was a huge fallout rate, all sorts of friction with the retail realtors
because
wondering who we were.
Flat fee brokers, they already get their money paid, so don't care how much the deal
They
makes.
just put it on the MLS.
Gotcha.
So you're not interacting with a human very much.
Got
and
it,
you
okay.
take all the calls, there's all these friction points. They have to call into the flat fee broker, and then they give them your number, and then they got to call you.
There's too many moving parts.
There's a lot of friction points, and the retail buyers don't like the retail agents don't like anything where it's out of the ordinary. They either think it's a scam or they think something funny is going on.
Yeah.
So we had like a huge fallout rate, like probably more than 50% of the deals that we were doing were like falling out, right? Yeah. And there was just a lot of messes created.
Yeah.
But the thing was he was getting deals to the finish line. You know what I mean? So it was proof of concept. Gotcha. Yeah, and I mean, I learned a ton there, and that's where I developed like my Novation pitch and everything. That's fairly similar to what I do today.
What can you share about the Novation pitch? Like, how would you go about it?
So you have to first eliminate the cash offer as an option. So it's not something you can go in and while you're in the call say, hey, we have this thing over here, Novation. You have to treat it like a cash offer the entire call. That's what I
Interesting.
found has been the most effective.
Okay.
But once they find out realistically what a cash offer would look like, that door gets closed because it's painfully low for them, right?
Yeah.
And then we pitch it as the concierge service,
Interesting.
and we pitch it as the perfect solution that they qualified for, rather than presenting it as an alternative option of like, hey, you didn't like this thing over here, but what about this right here? It's more like, hey, look, this is what a real cash offer looks like. And yes, I know it's horribly low. I know that's probably not going to be a fit. However, the good news is I actually have you qualified for a program called the concierge service where you get a lot of the benefits of a cash deal.
Yeah.
But we go and find a third-party buyer for you, and we earn our fee from the buyer. So you know exactly how much you're going to be making. We do all the legwork to put it together, and then we walk them through the paperwork. So
Gotcha.
they don't hear anything about Novations until the very end of normally the third call.
Gotcha. So your sales process is a 3-call sales process?
Yes. Well, there's 3 phases. Sometimes the first and second phase will blend together on one call if the seller is motivated and willing to talk. But the 3 phases we call the discovery phase.
Uh-huh.
This is where we find out all the information about the property, the seller's situation, their fears, their hopes and dreams.
Yep. Build that gap.
Yes. Yeah. So we need to understand their situation and have empathy for them.
Yeah.
Because we have to know what the problems are for us to be able to come up with the perfect solution, right? Phase 2, we call the anchor phase, where basically we have to reconcile their expectations with the reality of like what a cash offer would actually be.
Yeah.
So we're naming all the low comps. We're showing them where cash buyers are buying other properties. And they're saying, well, hey, my house is way nicer than this. We're saying, hey, we understand and we agree. However, cash buyers, this is where they're buying houses.
Yeah.
And if they're going to come in and redo the kitchen, it costs the same amount to redo a dated kitchen as it does like a horrible kitchen. You know what I mean? And then they start to come to the realization that a cash offer may not be the fit. And then phase 3, we call the delivery phase. And then that's when we present the perfect solution. Once they've given up hope on the cash offer and they understand it's not going to be a match, then we offer that concierge service, and then we run through the entire contract, make sure they explain, they understand everything, and then we set expectations, and then we start the whole back-end process.
What does the timeline look like on that? So let's say you get a seller under contract. What happens right after that?
So after we set the expectations, then we have to basically start hunting for the best realtor.
You don't use the same realtor?
No, because we do nationwide marketing.
Oh, okay.
And then we also get a lot of JV deals from wholesalers around the country. So a lot of times we're like in really random places and like small towns. Like a lot of our deals are in small towns.
Can you wholesale? Can you novate deals in a rural area? Because I know with wholesale you can't, because you gotta have comps, you gotta have buyers. So can you sort of run us through that side of it?
Yeah, most of our deals are in smaller towns.
Why does that work? Can you explain why that works? Because I want to know.
Yeah, and it depends. Like if it's a shack in the middle of the woods, it's different than like a town of say like 5,000 people.
Okay.
Right, and the reason that we can make it work is because there are retail buyers. There's just not fix and flippers, and a lot of times these properties are move-in ready. So basically, like the benefit to the seller is they don't have to deal with anything. They don't have to spend any money. We call it a hands-off white glove experience where we deliver the result on the silver platter, right?
Yep.
So the reason we get so many small town deals too is this is what wholesalers send us, because these are the deals they can't do anything with.
Correct.
The motivation's there. They've already paid for the lead, either with blood, sweat, and tears or cold hard cash, right?
Yep.
And then, they come across me on Instagram, or maybe one of their buddies has done a deal with our team, and they'll send it into our website. And basically they get 40% just for connecting us with the seller. And we negotiate it, we put it under contract, and we get it sold. So the reason we do so many small towns is like, we're kind of like, that we take the leads no one else wants, right?
Wait, so you're saying somebody that's watching this, that they have a seller, that someone needs to sell, there's a level of motivation to selling. They can submit a lead to you and you just close it for them?
Exactly.
Walk us through that process.
Yeah, so like I've built my whole business on JV deals. We've only been buying our own leads for maybe like 6 months. So, we found this gap in the market because these deals, they do require money. Like normally at any given time, I'll have 6 figures out just between all the deals. 3,000 here for a plumber, gave this seller 2,000 to move. So they're messy. It's kind of in between.
Yeah, I hope you have a good accountant for that. I'm sure you have a good accountant
Yeah.
for that, right? Yeah, I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's all cost of goods sold stuff, but it's kind of in between as far as work and complication. It's in between wholesale and fix and flipping.
Okay.
And there's a lot more, management of the sellers. Like giving the seller a stress-free experience is where the money's made.
How do you do that?
Well, one, we're really good at asking good questions to find out what the most important things are for them.
Okay.
And we purposely deliver as much value as we can throughout it and try to keep their stress level down, try to be constantly solution oriented because they see exactly how much you make and they sign the buyer's offer.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
if you're transactional with it and you're just trying to make money and you're not trying to be experiential for them,
yeah,
they're going to be very upset when they see that offer come in and they see how much money you're making, right? Yeah. So basically just always moving the ball forward and making sure things are getting done, whether it's calling movers, whether it's helping them get their stuff out, whether it's paying the electric bill.
Okay, so you help the sellers with all of that?
Yes.
On most of these deals, not all
of them. A lot of them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And do you feel like that helps with not only them giving you that good reputation, good reviews, things like that, but possibly opportunity for referrals? Because most people nowadays, they look at this business as a transaction. It's less of a relationships business. So what is your opinion on that? What's your perspective on that?
We get some referrals, but it's just I'm of the mind of like any business, both parties have to leave after everything's said and done happy and satisfied, right? So setting the proper expectations and then fulfilling them is incredibly important. I would say that's the most important thing to having a happy customer or a happy client at the end.
Correct.
But yes, like these little things too of like, not little things, but paying their electric bill, their lights are about to get shut off. Last month we had someone's car was about to get repoed. I had to pay $2,000 to catch them up on that.
Wow.
But we try to solve all the ancillary problems because if we can solve all the problems that they have going on, now they're more flexible on being able to give us a discount because it's a fair trade, right?
Yeah.
And people wonder like, how do you get these great deals?
Yeah.
Well, we get to the core of what they have going on and then we solve those problems. And then now all of a sudden, the asking price becomes less important.
Yep.
And a lot of people wonder like, well, why don't they just go with a realtor? It's like, well, most people are going to go with a realtor. The same reason why doesn't someone with a wholesale property go with a realtor? It's just, they don't, for whatever reason, there's a million reasons. Yeah. They just don't for whatever reason, right? So
because nobody likes realtors for the most part.
I do.
Like
there's some great realtors, but it's like lawyers, right? There's a couple really good ones, but the majority of them are not doing a lot of business and they're not like top performing. And realtors will even say this, right?
Yep.
Most realtors are, 80% of the deals are done by like 20% of the people.
Correct.
Or less, right? So, we just try to give them a 5-star experience and make sure that they're happy when everything's done.
Gotcha.
We try to go out of our way to solve their problems.
Gotcha. When it comes to partnering up or choosing realtors in a new market, for example, because you're doing a lot of these JV deals, how are you finding them and sort of vetting them to know like, hey, this is a realtor we want to work with? Yeah.
So we have a process.
Okay.
And our process is we will call all the realtors that have recently sold in that neighborhood.
And you just pull that on Zillow or what is that?
I'll use PropStream.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you can use Zillow if you don't have PropStream. But yeah, because like the thought process is, well, the best person to sell this house is someone that just recently sold one that's similar in that same area.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a double-edged thing beneficially too, where once we have maybe 5, 10 conversations with realtors that have recently sold houses like ours, we have all this new data on what's going on in that neighborhood.
Interesting.
And we, we have a certain way that we present everything and talk to them where we're really good at getting them on board, getting them motivated, setting ourselves as like a high value client in their mind.
That's awesome.
And we kind of have our pick of the litter because we're calling them up saying, hey, look, we have a property we're looking to sell. I'm looking for someone really sharp.
Yeah.
This goes well. I'd love to work with you in the future. What
Yeah.
can you tell me about yourself? Where kind of like how they did me in Kirby, where they made the focus all on me trying to prove myself to them, where I wasn't asking a bunch of questions. I kind of used that same framework with them, where it's all about them proving themselves to us. And we do tell them before we hire them, they understand what's going on. We're working on behalf of the seller. We're going to be handling any repairs, and we're going to be their main point of contact, and the seller wants to be hands off. But we have those conversations with them and make sure that they have vendors in the area if we need cleanup and stuff like that. And then we just get our pick of the litter and find the best one. And we ask them all too to tell us where they think the property would need to be priced in order to sell quickly.
And then do you take that back to the seller and then renegotiate, or what does that look like?
Only if we have to. So if we find new information where we thought, for sure it's going to sell for 300, right? But then we get the realtor over there and we find out it's in worse condition, or there's something going on where the calculation is off.
Yeah.
If we need to renegotiate, we do it right then. We don't put it on the market. I feel that the only ethical way to do it is right then, because this is what a lot of people do, is they put it on anyways, and then they plan on renegotiating later once they get an offer, and the seller's basically more vulnerable, right? Because more time has passed, they're more committed. But we renegotiate right then on the spot. I would say maybe 1 out of 5, we find out some information where we do need to make an adjustment in order for it to work.
Is that conversation with the seller hard, going back to them and renegotiating, or what is that like?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, but there's a framework for it where basically we explain to them the new information that we have. And it's like, well, because in light of this new information, in order for us to be confident that we can deliver the result to you, this is where we would need to be.
Gotcha.
And if this doesn't work for you, hey, I understand. No harm, no foul. We'll part ways as friends. But based on our research and data, I mean, the numbers are the numbers. And whether you deal with us or someone else, it's going to end up being what it is. So, we'll just give them, we'll give them the option of either re-signing at the price that works, or if we have to part ways, we just release them from the contract.
So it's only 20% of deals that happens to. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it varies. When I have more new people, it happens more often, right? Because they don't have the experience. They're not asking as many questions.
New closers, you mean, right?
Correct. New closers on the team. They'll get more fallout than the seasoned people.
Let's dive into your team right now. What does that look like? Walk us through your org chart.
Yeah, so I have 4 team leaders that are closers, and they're all basically the first guys that were working with me that I kind of trained one-on-one.
They're your OGs, basically.
My OGs,
Yep.
And then I have a total of 20 closers.
20 closers. How's managing that? Well, it's not like you're managing it. You have team leaders that manage them. So walk us through that process.
Yeah, so they're all trained on my Rainmaker training. So we are very strict on the framework on how we run the calls.
Okay.
And when I say 20 closers, about 8 of them right now, I believe, are really closers in training. So everyone that...
So trainees.
Exactly.
Okay.
That are working their way towards being closers. So when you come in the company, you start off as an intake specialist, where essentially you're learning the closing process, and you're basically a glorified lead manager.
That's what it sounds like.
You're teeing up deals, you're talking to JV partners, you're running just the discovery process. You don't negotiate, you don't close anything. And that's basically for them to learn our CRM, get their hands dirty on the phone, and work with their team leaders to learn how to actually close the deals. Because it is a big mountain to climb to come in fresh, because some of my closers have never done real estate before. You know what I mean? So
what do you look for when you're hiring closers?
So the big thing is I'm looking for someone that's well-spoken,
Okay.
someone that has high drive,
Okay.
and someone that's coachable and has a positive mental attitude.
Okay.
If I can get that and someone that's just in general just sharp, right? Where I look in their eyes, I can tell, hey, there's something going on in there. This person has the potential to go places,
Gotcha.
right? So the way I hire is I have them send a 3-minute video saying their background, why they want to be on the team, and why they feel like they'd be an asset. And I keep it very vague because I want to see how they interpret that and what they're going to tell me about.
Yep, their
right?
priorities, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I mean, just from doing so much door to door and hiring so many people for Kirby, it's just I get a feeling either it's got to be
BS meter's good.
It's got to be a heck yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I know the job's hard too. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
I don't want to bring someone on that's not going to make it because it doesn't do me any good and it's not good for them.
When you hire salespeople right now, are you giving them draws or is this strictly commission?
100% commission.
Do you feel like that helps with not only their drive, their output, but their productivity? Like, what has your experience been when it comes to strictly hiring, commission-based closers?
Absolutely. I think it weeds out the serious and the curious from the curious.
I love that.
And I like my percentages I pay, like my closers they all make 20% plus. So I pay pretty much double what the normal rate is. I'd say about 10 is the industry standard, maybe 15.
Okay.
But yeah, and a lot of my guys, I have some people that start that they're driving Uber Eats at night.
Wow.
I had a guy that closed his first deal. He was delivering pizzas and he was folding boxes in the back of the pizza shop.
Wow.
And he actually, that same guy made $40,000 this last month in January.
In commissions?
Wow.
So on-track earnings are they can make $500,000 a year working for you.
Yes, and that's my goal, because my goal is like, look, if I can get my guys everything they want, by default, I'm going to be doing well myself.
Exactly. And I love that because you have this, what I've noticed from what you just said, you have this sort of philosophy that's like leaders eat last, right? Like if you take care of your team and they get what they want, eventually, if everything else goes correctly, you should get what you want.
And I look for good people that I can give equity to and give responsibility, right? Because a lot of people think, well, if I get someone that's entrepreneurial minded, what are they going to need me for? I'm just going to train them up and they're going to do their own thing.
Correct.
And that happens to me too. Yes, that will happen, but it's like one of those things.
It's like a heartbreak.
Being afraid of having your dream girl because what if she leaves you? But it's but what if she stays?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And why not go for the best people? I want all strong people around me. Because even people that aren't strong, they leave and try to do their own thing too. So I try to attract really good people and people that are, either like me for the sales stuff, and then also people that are good at the things that I'm not good at.
Like what?
For everything else. Like dispositions. I hate dispositions. Okay. I love sales with the sellers. But I don't like that. I'm not good with organization. I'm like a bull in a china shop. I'm the guy, I want to run in the room, shoot it up with a machine gun, leave, and then someone comes and cleans up the mess, right?
Gotcha.
But the CRM stuff, the organization stuff, writing out SOPs and stuff like that.
Now we got ChatGPT that does all that.
Exactly. So that has helped.
Yeah.
And I use ChatGPT a lot, right?
Okay.
But I try to bring in people that are entrepreneurial minded, that want to build something, and that are just looking for the support and the resources that I can provide. Because the things I'm good at, I like to think I'm damn good at, right? Like sales, I know I'm great at, communication, things like that. But I know also for me to get everything I want, I need a lot more people involved. You know what I mean? So I try to think big enough so that everybody's dream can fit within the collective dream.
I love that. The reason why I love that you just said that is because I met with a gentleman named Christian Guzman, the owner of Alfleet. Do you know what Alfleet is? You ever heard of Gymshark?
Yeah.
So they sell gym clothing, right? They do. Last time I spoke to him, he does $100 million a year with 20 people.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, so your team is pretty fucking dialed, right? Yeah. I asked him how he did it, and his response to me was build a vision so big to where people are willing to reallocate and, where they're able to fit their dreams inside of your dream. So I love that you said that. Since we're on the topic of recruiting or just having team members, what does your onboarding process look like to ramp somebody up to speed? That way they can be a full-fledged closer.
So they send in the video from Instagram.
Uh-huh.
And if I think they have a good potential, I'll give them our intake specialist training.
Okay.
Which is basically just like the first quarter of my course where we go over personality types, how to do the discovery phase. They get to see some role plays, some live calls. And I tell them, hey, go through everything front to back, watch all the videos multiple times. When you feel like you're a 9 out of 10 on the material, get back to me and I'll give you an audition. But make sure you're 100% prepared because you only get one audition. You know what I mean?
What does that audition entail?
They just tell me about or my team leaders run them now. Initially, I was running them, right?
Absolutely.
But we quiz them on the 4 personality types.
Okay. What are they?
They're color coded.
Okay.
So is basically a driver, analytical, social conscious, and blue, I believe, is just social.
Oh, okay.
So, and this, actually, I learned this all from Sean Terry. So shout out to him. Like, it's not my original idea. And it's basically just another iteration of the disc test.
Yeah,
and there's a bunch of stuff like that, right? But we have them explain that to us, and then we have them run through a role play discovery call. And we just want to hear, how do they sound? Do they sound like they're reading? Because it's like something that's easy, but it's also very telling. Because something that's easy to do is also easy not to do.
Yep.
And if someone's not fully prepared, I already know they're never going to make it. So they got to ace that. And once they ace that, then we give them a shot. We bring them in our CRM. We bring them in our group Discord for the team. We run everything out of a virtual office in Discord where we have our meeting rooms where we can go in video chats or just listen to each other's calls. And we do meetings every morning. And then basically their job is to go through the CRM, tee up the new leads, go through the old leads and see what they can rustle up, and then I give them the full Rainmaker program, and it's their job now to, in their off time, study that completely. So the training's almost completely automated through the videos.
Do you guys do like one-on-one role plays, daily call reviews to get them sharp? Not you, but like your team members or your team, what do you call them, leaders?
Yeah. So I do call reviews twice a week with them.
Okay.
And their team leaders also do it a couple times a week with them. And then they'll have meetings for like comping training, and we do some role play, but that's mostly my team leaders.
Gotcha.
And then we'll also, pop in and ask questions all the time too from their team leaders.
Gotcha.
So the training's like the framework, and then the one-on-one stuff is all the nuanced, specific, deal-specific, or random questions.
Yeah, okay. So
miscellaneous. But that's really helped me scale, though, because anyone that's ever ran a wholesale company, if you're trying to just teach someone how to be a closer from A to Z and you don't have like a clearly defined script and blueprint and plan, it's very time-consuming, and it's not very effective.
Yep.
You have a much higher fall-off rate, and it's much more frustrating for everybody involved. So I try to make it where when we're giving them one-on-one time, it's for much higher level things. It's not for teaching the actual mechanics of it.
Yeah.
It's the nuanced things that we're going over.
Okay. So since we're on the topic of scaling, how big are you guys trying? Well, let's start with where you're at right now, volume and deal wise. Where would you put that at?
I mean, we're doing anywhere from a dozen to a couple of dozen deals a month.
Okay.
And where we're looking to get, I mean, I have the number 25 million in my head.
Why 25 million?
I don't know. It's just, it popped in there and I just ran with it.
Okay.
That's the goal for this year, right? I mean, last year alone, we paid out a couple million just to the JV partners. So
wow.
We had a really good year last year.
$25 million in revenue.
Is what I'm looking, total revenue.
Can I ask, with a wholesaling company or novation company like yours, what does margin sit at? And the reason why I ask is because I have this saying, it's revenue's vanity, profit sanity.
Yeah.
So for out of curiosity, margin-wise, where would you put that at?
My take-home's right around 30%.
30%. Okay, so it's very healthy.
Yeah, it's depending on who, because some people run a wholesale business at like a 90%, right? If you have like
but
PAs,
you're working like a dog.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And like for me too, because like most of my deals are JV. So right off the top, 40%'s gone. And people think I'm crazy for giving JV partners the 40% when we do almost all the work. But I also, the thing is we have the best lead source. We have the lead source that you can't buy because people are passing us leads that they already paid for, then they've talked to and vetted, and then they're handing them off to us essentially on the last lap of the race.
Yeah.
And then we could close 1 out of 6 and sometimes more.
1 out of 6
of the
deals
JV
submitted. Wow.
submitted. Yeah, and with our JV partners that understand our process, they pretty much only send us good ones. You know what I mean? So It's more like.
How did you attract JV partners?
So I went for a number of years. I went live almost every day with sales calls. So I would go when I had a hot lead. I'd go on Instagram Live, and people just heard me on the phone. And I just gave away all my sauce. I'd go into Facebook groups. Hey, doing Novations nationwide. If anybody has any questions, let me know. Or if I see someone posting about Novations, I'd give them some helpful feedback. I looked at it as hey, look, I've got this value to give, and I just had this big bag of seeds, and then I throw them out everywhere, and most of them, nothing would happen. But I gave out so much stuff that eventually things slowly started coming back. You know what I mean? But yeah, going live, doing Q&As, giving free trainings. Once I, started getting, and the good thing about the JV deals is we do a JV deal, right? And you give them 40%. So they're making $15,000, $20,000.
What's your average assignment?
Probably about 35 right now.
What do you call it? Profit? What do you call it? Because in wholesale, you call it average assignment. What do you call it in Novations?
Yeah, I mean, novation fee.
Oh, okay. So
but
it's $35,000.
Yeah.
And they get 40% of that.
And they get 40%
so that's
of
about
that.
15 grand?
Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody submits a lead to you, they don't even have to close it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be under contract.
Wow. And you just take care of everything. So they're basically getting you to do all the work for 15 grand.
Exactly.
Which is pretty fucking awesome if you ask me.
Oh, yeah, and that was the whole plan behind it was I wanted to market is let us be your Novation department. We focus on the deals that you're already doing, streamline the wholesaling, right? And get those deals. And then when you come across these opportunities, these are ones normally people are throwing away anyways.
Yeah.
So it's let us be a new revenue stream for you. We're your easy button. And like last year, we had some JV partners that did over $300,000 that was their take home from the deals that they sent us.
Yep.
So, and I mean, that's more than some
wholesalers make.
Yeah, their whole stream. These are deals they didn't have to put any money into, they didn't have to do any work on, and we did it all for them. So I got in early on the Novation thing, so I'm set up for it. So it's kind of the same reason why you'd ask a wholesaler, well, why don't you just fix and flip the house and keep all the money?
Exactly.
Because they're not set up for it. You know what I mean? They don't have the contractors, they don't have the processes, and that's not their thing, which I respect. I don't want to fix and flip either.
Oh, dude,
honestly.
I have two. We've done 2 deals, and I've absolutely I want to shoot myself because of them. So I absolutely agree with you on that. Okay, so I want to take a step back and talk about. You mentioned a lot of positives, a lot of benefits, a lot of good things about Novations and doing it with JV partners. What are some of the challenges you run into?
Oof. How much time we got? No, I'm
a
just
lot.
kidding.
I have a lot of time.
So this is the analogy I give my guys. I say there's 3 mountains you have to climb. Mountain 1 is getting the lead in and getting under contract. And that mountain is more like a little tiny hill. The bigger mountain you have to climb after that is finding the realtor, getting it ready for market, and getting it on market and sold to buyer, right? And then the third mountain is once it's under contract, sold to buyer, they have to get through the whole escrow process, inspections and everything, and get it actually closed and actually earn the money. But the challenge is one, keeping the seller happy and on board the whole time, and dealing with just a constant stream of problems. And the analogy I use with them is it's like taking a group of kindergartners through a dangerous jungle without them getting eaten or wandering off, where you have to keep everybody close to you. And you have to do it in a caring way. You can't yell at them. You can't tie them up.
How do you do that at scale, though? Because you're doing, 30, 40 deals a month. How do you do that?
So my guys work the deals front to back.
Wow. That's why they're getting 20%.
That's why they get 20%. Yeah. So, and the reason why we've tried it another way, but the problem is the person that makes the promises is the best one to fulfill the promise.
Exactly.
And getting it under contract is actually the easiest part. It takes a lot more mental fortitude, a lot better communication skills, a lot more pain tolerance because the sellers we're dealing with, normally it's not the house that is in distress. It's the seller's life is in some form of chaos, whether it be from a health thing, whether it be from poor choices and getting themselves into all these crazy jams, and keeping them on board and happy is such a high level skill. It's like to hire someone to just deal with that, I don't know where I would find them. You know what I mean? So
I heard this quote online by a guy named, we'll bleep it out. But I think you've seen it. He says that everybody that went from wholesaling to full-on novations failed last year.
yeah, I saw that too.
So what is your opinion on that?
I mean,
Because when
I guess
saw
he's
that,
not in the Rainmaker community because I mean I had people flying from all around the country to come to our event here. Here's the thing: the people that it depends on how they went all in because there was a lot of bad advice on novations, and those people are all gone.
Like what?
Use a flat fee broker. Give the seller whatever they're asking for, and then you'll figure it out later and reduce it.
That sounds like opening a very bad can of worms.
Absolutely. Not disclosing and setting expectations properly. There were some people that were teaching, don't tell them that you're putting it on the market, and if they find out, just tell them it's a pre-marketing clause. But it's funny, all those people that were preaching that, they're now out of the wholesale business. Some of them are in the coaching business.
Oh, yeah, because if you can't teach, you do. Oh, no, if you can't do, you teach.
Exactly, right? But there was a lot of bad advice, but that was one thing was I made a lot of stands online of where I drew the line of like, guys, don't do it this way. And if you do, you're asking for trouble and you can possibly screw up novations for all of us.
Yeah.
So, too, and it just depends on what someone's vested interest is it.
Do you feel like Novation is going to get regulated? Novation is going to get regulated?
Yeah, it already is. In South Carolina, some of the new anti-wholesaling laws also, novations gets looped in with it. Now, in some states that have some wholesaling restrictions, novation still circumvents it because it depends on how it's worded. You know what I mean? On how the actual laws are worded because we're not doing it in assignment of contract.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And a lot of the anti-wholesaling laws have to do with that. But that's why I preach so much on making sure the sellers leave happy and also doing everything in an ethical and transparent way. Because I think the thing that makes people the most angry is when they think one thing's happening and then something else happens and then they feel like they were duped. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like if you tell them, hey, I'm going to buy your house cash and then they see it on the market, there's a big disconnect.
Yep.
But if you tell them, hey, look, I'm going to handle everything for you. You can sit back. You don't have to lift a finger or spend a penny.
So you're pretty much the gateway between an end buyer, pretty much. That's what a novation is. Is that correct?
It's almost like I'm like a project manager.
Okay.
Right? Where I'm still dealing with a licensed agent. So I'm not plain agent. And some people do that where they do the flat fee and then they're doing all the things that an agent would do.
Yeah.
But that's another thing that could make novations go out quicker because it's essentially brokering without a license.
Oh.
Right? Because the people that do flat fee, they're taking all the calls, they're sending the contracts out. It's like putting on like a white coat and going into a hospital and performing surgery and saying, well, I'm not technically a doctor.
Yeah.
But I'm
more like
an attorney in
nurse.
fact.
Yeah, you're like a nurse at that point. You're like a surgical nurse helping out the surgeon.
Yes, but without the credentials in a regulated industry, right? There's very specific laws that prevent you from doing realtor or broker related activities, which there's a very strong case to be made if you don't own the property and you're not a licensed agent and you're doing all those things, that you're overstepping some legal lines.
I see. So my question for you is, let's say Novations does get regulated. What's the backup plan?
Just buying the houses and reselling them.
So like
just closing on them.
Double closing basically then.
No, I mean, if novations completely get regulated, I would assume double closing and assignment would be out of the picture then. I'm just saying actually purchasing, doing like a wholesale. So either using my own money or at scale, raising capital or private money.
Can you break down for the viewers what a wholesale is?
So wholesale is when you buy the property, do some minor work to it, take title to it, and actually close on it, right? Either with hard money or your own money.
Yeah.
And then you pretty much immediately resell it.
There's a term I can't. It's like flipping, but it's like quick flipping.
Yeah.
What is?
Yeah, and Jerry Norton calls it the takedown method.
Yeah.
And it's been around for a long time, actually probably longer than wholesale. But the reason wholesale is so attractive is you don't have to actually buy the property.
Yep.
And kind of novations too,
Yep.
where it's a lot lower barrier of entry. Not everybody has hundreds of thousands of dollars laying around.
Yep.
And then no matter how much money you have, at scale, eventually you run out. You know what I mean? Now, the more money you have, the bigger you can scale, but there's always a finite line on how much money that you can put out. But that's why wholesaling is so attractive, and novations too, because you can do, it's very similar, but you don't have to close on it. You know what I mean? The only money I'm putting out is the actual repairs or the actual money. But yeah, I would probably just flip to wholesale if that happened.
Do you think Novations is a beginner friendly strategy?
No.
Why?
It's basically a much more intense and longer version of wholesaling. See, in wholesale, you're in and out in less than a month normally.
Most of the time, if you know what you're doing, yes.
And a lot of times you're dealing with vacant properties. You're dealing, but with these, most of them are occupied.
Oh.
You have a longer time frame. I wish I could get all vacant ones, but normally the reason that they're not selling with the realtor is because they're living there. They may not have money for their next place. You know what I mean? And they're in some sort of financial jam.
So what do you do about that? You just give them money to go find another spot, or what do you do?
Well, there's a process behind that too, right?
Yeah,
we try to figure out what's the minimum amount needed, and they sign a promissory note, and we don't just, when they ask for it, just give it to them right away.
Yeah,
There's a process, right? It's like, hey, let me understand this full situation. I'm gonna, and then the closer has to bring it to the team leader, and then we'll bring it to me, and we'll evaluate it. And we try to figure out what the minimum amount that they need is, right? But we always try to pay for the thing rather than give them the money. So if they need a play, if they're trying to get their next place, we have them provide the lease first. And then, okay, what's the amount down? And then if we can pay the landlord directly, we'll do that. You know what I mean? Or pay the moving company directly, because we've had it in the past where we give them the money and then they don't use it for what they're supposed to. And then we're in the same place, but worse off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense. Okay, so if somebody is starting out, where should they start out? Just wholesaling?
Yeah. And for most people, joining a team is going to be a much faster track to success, unless, here's the caveat, if you already have some of your own money and you can afford to hire someone to generate leads for you, and you can afford to get some good training where you can learn the business from someone that actually knows what they're doing, right?
Like you, Novation King.
Yeah, I mean, for example, me, right? But you're either going to pay for the mistakes or you can pay for the fast track, right? And there are going to be some people that start off cold calling, driving for dollars, and doing that on their own, and they're going to go through a painful process. But I've seen people make it that way. Yeah. But those type of people, they're not going to listen to my advice anyways, right? They're just going to do what they're already doing. But I think for most people starting off, you should either join a team or hire a mentor, unless you're just going to do it part-time. But I think a lot of people too underestimate the amount of activity that's needed to get reliable results. And then they also underestimate how difficult it is. And then that might be my wife coming back up.
No, I was just thinking, I'm stretching my head.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you heard the elevator there. They underestimate all that's involved in finding these motivated sellers and converting them.
Speaking of finding sellers, what are you doing right now besides JV to actually get sellers?
Yeah, we do PPC, where we have our own campaigns that someone's running. We do PPL.
Okay.
And there's some Facebook and YouTube PPL, but all inbound. I don't do any cold calling stuff. Not that it doesn't work. It's just not my cup of tea. It's a different dynamic. But yeah, the digital marketing, I think, is by far superior.
Gotcha.
And it's it's always going to be around too.
Gotcha. So let's talk about your sort of more personal side. What
Yeah.
is a day in the life? Oh, I guess it's personal and business. So what is it like a day in the life of you, Novation King, look like?
Man, so normally wake up around 6 a.m. Me and
Okay.
my wife will get up. Normally hit the gym in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I'll come back. I'll go through my social media, maybe post something, catch up with messages,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of chill out. 8:30, we have our daily meetings. So
Okay.
our meetings, we're going over all the deals that we have that are already sold to buyer.
Mm.
I'm normally doing some sort of big picture talk or motivational speech or some issue that we've been dealing with in the beginning where I kind of connect with my team.
Can you
Uh,
share an example of a struggle you guys talked through with your team?
yeah, I mean, here's the deal with the business. There's so much negativity involved with it where you're dealing with people with problems. You're having deals constantly in peril, right?
Yep.
So I talked to them a lot about, kind of my experience and what it took for me, and basically telling them, hey, look, I know you think that you're working hard, but I'm telling you, to get where you want to go, you got to redline it. You have to expand your comfort zone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'll tell them about my experience of trying to do it on my own, or tell them different plans that we have for the future, kind of big company vision
Yep.
stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and how they can fit in with it,
Yep.
and recognize the people that are doing very well, give them recognition in front of everybody,
Yep.
have people talk about their deals, and then we'll either go through all of our deals on certain days, and other days we'll do like call reviews where I'll really just try to get them to understand like how I hear these calls and read between the lines, and kind of like the training teaches them how to do what we do, but then the call reviews and the meetings kind of teach them how to think like we think. How to analyze the deals and like the different perspectives. And on those calls, like we have a lot of breakthroughs because a lot of times it's just the way you're interpreting the data is the big thing where you make just a slight shift on how you read between the lines, and then a bunch of things just kind of lock into place. So like both when I did the private coaching for other people's businesses and in my own business, the call reviews are always the biggest breakthrough and the best training you can get.
100%. 100%. Okay. So after your morning meeting, you said 8:30?
Yeah, so it's normally 8:30 to 9:30.
Okay.
Then normally I'll have, maybe an hour or two where I'm just following up with my guys in different problem deals. Like I'm kind of like a firefighter.
Yep. That's
It's
what
like,
being a CEO is.
yeah, I'm like the last stop. So normally after the meeting, it's like, all right, guys, tag me in Discord if you have an active problem that we need to address. And then I'll just kind of prioritize those by the urgency and go through those. And I might be calling a realtor and getting things back on track. I might be signing offers, I might be helping with the seller that's on the edge of a cliff, sending out bonuses or money. It's basically like I have maybe like a 2-hour period where I'm just fighting fires
Yep.
and
It's like catch-up time.
exactly moving the needle. And then honestly, a lot of times from that point, from maybe like 12 on, I might be doing like a podcast or an interview, or I might be calling up, old JV partners or wholesaling buddies, and just on big, more like overall picture things and nurturing the relationships, all my
Yep.
important relationships, checking in with my people. I have a few private coaching clients too that I'll work with a couple times a week.
Okay.
I keep that, it's not a big part of my business and I really don't advertise it, but I will have people that will approach me. And if I feel like it's a right fit and it'll be beneficial to them and it's, they can afford to make it worth my time too, I'll take those on. But I get a lot of, I learn from those coaching calls as well because I get to hear what type of problems people have. And a lot of the things are things that I've already dealt with, right? And then honestly, from the rest of the day, I'm hanging out with my kids. I'm driving my car.
Yeah. You got a
And I
really
just
nice
have
car.
random calls of just fires to put out, but I
Yeah.
don't have like a lot of structure in that second part. And that's something actually this year I'm working on more because I know too, I'm not running at my full capacity.
What makes you say that?
Well, it's because, I know if there's room for me to push harder. I think part of it was I worked so hard for so many years. It was kind of like I just really kind of reveled in having my time back and being able to be around my family. And it's not that I want to be around them less, but
Yeah.
I also know, there's certain time that's just completely unproductive where it's almost kind of like selfish for me to just sit back and relax when I could be adding more to the people around me. And I could be putting myself in higher leverage positions where then ultimately I can have even more of my time back for my family.
What are the highest leverage actions and things you can do right now to scale the business?
Bring in more leads, having
Okay.
more strategic partnerships. Like I just did we're doing a deal with Brent with his PPC stuff. Where we're going to be working with them. Me and you are doing things together
Yeah.
too, and you
Yeah.
can bleep out, the people's names
Yeah.
that you need to,
Yeah.
right? But just looking for higher leverage positions. Like I did things with a crowdfunding platform for real estate projects,
Oh wow.
and I invested in a couple flips with one of my buddies out here. And I'm just, it's got to feed either a bigger picture thing with technology and higher leverage things, with growing my team, or with growing our resources. So
I love
kind
that.
of kind of visionary things where
Gotcha.
not working in the business, but working
On the
on the business and
Yep.
growing the business and growing opportunity.
You sound a lot like a visionary as opposed to being an integrator. Would you agree?
Yes.
So what do you do about like how do you find your other half, your integrator?
Well, luckily, I have some really good integrators already in the company
That's
where
awesome.
that's kind of their thing. Yeah. So there's a couple guys that help me with a lot of the stuff that I'm
Because I
absolutely horrible with.
completely relate to you. Like I'll set a vision like 5 years out, and then I have a like a CS director who runs my client success team, and he just executes on it. Same thing on the sales side. So I absolutely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question I have for you is what is your why? Like, why do you do all this? Why do you want to hit 25 million?
I mean, I would say ultimately my goal is to just be, and man, I didn't think this was going to make me emotional, but I'm feeling emotional talking about this, but to just to be everything that, to unlock the potential that God put in me, right? Where I was built with these things, like these inherent gifts, and I think everybody has inherent gifts and talents, right? And I would say most people never unlock them to the fullest degree, right? And the people that do unlock them to the fullest degree are the people that we look up to and admire, right? Like the Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, like these people that, wow, look at all these things that they've done. But like my goal is, number one, I want to make sure my family's safe and protected and secure. My kids have an amazing childhood. I set them up for success where they can become the best versions of themselves. But like even running my team, like seeing the guys on my team, like see their lives change and their families change and see them grow. I just want to be as valuable as possible and just shine my light. Like I want to like not feel like I left anything on the table or held back. Like I want to make as big of an impact as I can. Now I'm probably never going to be Elon Musk, right? But I could be the best version of Rich. You know what I mean? And that's what I want. Is I don't want to stop until I'm gone. Like I want to see, hey, how far can we go? Like how much positive ripples can I create? You know what I mean?
Right now, what fulfills you as a person?
Man, see my family happy, see my team win. Um, Man, my relationship with God, um, and just waking up, just feeling grateful, and just feeling the abundance of the world, and just seeing the world as just like a beautiful gift of like, wow, like I get to wake up, I get to enjoy my day, I get to deal with all these difficult problems and overcome a lot of them. And I just feel like, man, it's just such a gift. Like, I don't know, because of my past, like, right, I've been in a lot of crazy situations. Like, I was on the wrong track for a long time. And just to know that, like, I was never killed, I never was in a situation where I was facing crazy prison time or anything like that. Like, I just feel like I've dodged so many bullets. Like, I just feel like God has a plan. You know what I mean? So I really want to fulfill that potential as best I can. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
shave away all the things that aren't serving me. Shave, melt away as many of my weaknesses and flaws as I can, and just keep becoming this person that I feel, that I would admire, and try to become the person that I needed, and just try to alleviate some suffering in the world and be a shining light, that I try everything I touch to try to add some value in any way that I can. You know what I mean?
I love that. You mentioned a lot of the stuff that you have right now. It didn't sound like you had it growing up from our conversation here today. Would you agree?
Yes, like my dad got sick when I was just a baby, and my mom he was actually in real estate, and he had a bunch of deals going, and he had bought a few houses, and he even had a Rolls Royce at one point, right?
Wow.
But he was stretched super thin, and when he got sick and he couldn't work, he lost everything. Like, lost the houses, the cars, everything. We had to move into a little tiny apartment. My mom went back to working as a nurse, and he like almost died when I was a baby, right? So like, obviously I was young, I was 2, 3 years old, but like, money was always a problem growing up, right? Like, my dad ended up getting on disability and getting Social Security, and that helped some. But my mom worked nights. My dad was very it really crushed his spirit. Like, his identity was wrapped into being a great businessman, being a great salesman, his relationships. And when he could no longer physically do those things, like, I could tell, like, it really, really, oh man, it really bothered him. And like, he poured into me so much growing up, because he knew, like, he lived till I was 12, but he didn't expect to live that long. Like, he didn't know what day would be his last day, what year. And there was many scares, like, growing up, where my mom had to rush him to the hospital in the middle of the night, and didn't know if he's going to make it or not. You know what I mean? But he like really, really poured into me, of like teaching me like a winner mindset. He taught me, find the thing that you want to do, find someone that's an expert at it, and then outwork everybody. That was something he taught me from like a very, very young age. That was very, very valuable. And like, I remember even like as a kid, like when I was like, I must have been 6, 7 years old, all these houses were being built around Arizona, and he would go and buy a bunch of generic soda, take me to the different construction sites, and then I was called the pot boy. I would go around and sell all the construction workers sodas, and he'd let me keep the money. So he taught me like entrepreneurship at like a very, very young age. And then I was also competitively in karate, where like the little money that he had, he'd use it to, I'd go to karate practice every day. I eventually competed, and I won like some world championships for the organization I was in. And like, we'd fly around, and I'd go to these different tournaments. And he showed me like the idea of pursuing excellence and wanting to be the best. And it always stuck with me. And like, part of my drive too, is he died with a lot of unfulfilled dreams. And it's kind of like his soul like lives, oh man, wasn't trying to cry like this, but it's just a deep connection, I'm not ashamed of it, you know what I mean? But it's like his soul like lives through me. Like, I'm doing all the things now that he would have loved to do. And like, part of that too is just like why I want to keep pushing, because like, he didn't have that chance. Like, he died too early before like any of those things really were able to come true on the level that he wanted them to. So that's almost like too, is like a duty to like him. And my mom sacrificed like crazy. Me and my dad were super close, and my dad and my mom kind of butted heads growing up. They argued about money, and they were adults. Like, they had their own things going on. You know what I mean? But yeah, like, money was a struggle. But when he died, he had had a life insurance policy, and because he sold life insurance at one point,
Mm-hmm.
right? And luckily that really helped my mom. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
She was able to pay off some of his old debts. She bought a house in a decent area. She was able to build a new house. And she still had to work and everything, but like, she was in a much better position than we were before that. So that taught me a lot. That taught me a lot growing up like that, because I had two loving parents, which is the ultimate wealth.
Yep.
And I've heard people say before, like the best experience is growing up with good parents and no money, because and I totally agree. You know what I mean? Because it like
Your
really
daughter says hi.
motivated me.
Your daughter's over there. Says hi.
Oh.
Is this thing being recorded? Perfect.
But yeah, that was my childhood in a nutshell. And like when my dad died, that's when I got off and started getting into drugs and running in the streets and seeking validation and rebelling against my mom. And I went through a whole process with that too, where I got shipped off to like a boarding school / rehab. And I mean, I guess that's what happens when you don't die, is you live a long time and you have a bunch of stuff happen. So that's like a brief life story for you, I guess.
Gotcha. And I appreciate you sharing that. You mentioned, having your faith with God is really important to you. So in addition to God, what else do you believe in? What are some life, wisdom or quotes or sayings that you have right now that maybe you share with your kids, or maybe somebody else that was starting out, that, somebody's watching this, that they have gone through something similar, right? What are some sayings, I guess, that keep you going?
Well, I think it's really important you don't need to believe in a lot of things. I think you just need to believe in a few important things very deeply, right? And one thing for me is doing good business, someone being a trustworthy person, being an ethical person, being transparent about things is incredibly important. Like on my team, like I've had to let people go that, we were making a lot of money together because there was just a clash in values, you know what I mean? And, the integrity wasn't there, or, there was something there where there's certain, I don't know, every really successful person that I've met, they have certain things that are just a non-negotiable standard.
Yep.
I think
What are
having
those for you?
man, integrity, number one. Growth mindset is incredibly important. Like anyone that's around me or in the company, you have to be wanting to constantly improve and grow, and myself included. You know what I mean? Having someone that wants to make an impact. You know what I mean? Someone that wants to, make a positive impact with the sellers, make a positive impact with their team members. They want to grow and increase the opportunity. Empathy, putting yourself in people's shoes, right? Like Jesus said, do unto others as you want them to do unto you, right? So being able to be empathetic to other people, I think, is incredibly important. And it's the key to being a great communicator, is to be a great listener, and the better you can understand someone's situation, the better you can communicate with them and also influence them in the right direction, right? But yeah, those are the main things, is trying to do more, trying to do good, and making sure that you're not doing harm. Kind of like the medical code, right? Do no harm, right?
Yep.
So those are the big things that I look for. Is you've got to be a good person, you got to be driven, and you have to be malleable. The people that are stuck and tell themselves, this is the way that I am, that's great. Like I can respect that, but it's just I can't be around that. You know what I mean?
I see.
I need people that are constantly looking to grow and change, because that's how I am.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And all the standards I hold other people to, I have to hold myself to those same standards.
Correct. Let's take a step over to location, because earlier in this conversation you mentioned one of the first things somebody can do in order to get or switch from their current situation is their environment. And for you, in my personal opinion, and maybe you could relate to this, you're in one of the, if not the toughest market or area in the entire country because all the gurus are here, all the big wholesalers are here, all the big real estate investors in general are here, are around here. So for you, do you feel like that's a good thing for you? And how do you sort of deal with competition if you even pay attention to them?
I mean, here's the thing. I see it as a benefit being around all these people because I almost never compete with people I know with the sellers, right? It's not
Okay.
like, I'm talking to a seller and then they're like, well, we're talking to this company and then I know who that is, right? And I purposely built my business around collaboration. And that's the beauty of real estate is there's so many different ways to monetize opportunities. I kind of just picked my niche and went super deep. And I picked something that had a natural proclivity to where it kind of fit in with my natural skill set of communication, dealing with difficult problems, and withstanding a lot of pain. And then I just went super deep on that, and then I went and networked out.
If you don't mind me cutting you off there, I wanna understand. You say pain, and in business, I think we can everybody agree that things don't always go our way. Matter of fact, I always tell a lot of people this. If you go to a networking event and you ask an entrepreneur, how are things going? They say everything is going well. In my personal opinion, they're either too new or they're lying,
Yeah.
right? So my question for you is, what do you do when things don't go well? When things don't go your way, whether it's a small fire or a big fire. For example, one of your team members or team leaders, they leave you. Something
Right.
bad like that. Like, how do you navigate that?
Well, first, I have the expectation every day when I wake up that I'm going to deal with a lot of difficult, stressful problems. So I already expect it, right?
Okay. Set the bar low.
And yeah, and I tell my guys, I'm like, look, this is the equivalent of training to be a UFC fighter. So just understand you're going to get punched in the face, you're going to get beat up, and you're going to get your face rubbed into the mat, and you may as well just expect it. You know what I mean? So I expect and welcome the problems because I know without problems, there's no opportunity. So if I have a lot of problems, that's normally that I'm dealing with a lot of opportunity. And the big thing is that you have to remove your emotions as much as you can.
Yep.
But being a human being, obviously, they're going to be there. So one thing that I also try to do is I try to take whatever emotions I'm experiencing and channel them at least in a positive direction.
Yep.
So if I'm frustrated, I'll try to channel that into taking action, right? Or if I'm nervous about something or whatever the emotion is, I try to say, okay, well, what are my possible moves on this chessboard? I only have 2 moves.
Yeah.
If I move here, it's an automatic checkmate. So this is my only other move,
Yep.
and let's see what the next thing is. You have to just continue to do the next right thing. And a lot of times, too, it comes down to not the how, but the who, right? And
Break that down. What does that mean?
so, like, for example, one reason I love working with local realtors is, when I pick the really good ones, they can give me great insight and advice where I don't have to find out the answer. I can just propose the problem. They can give me some possible solutions. And then normally it's a clear decision on what my next best move is.
Yep.
But yeah, not cracking under the pressure is a huge thing where you're not getting emotionally involved overly, where it's affecting your productivity. And also keeping a cool head and understanding this too shall pass. And also the consistency comes from scale. So yes, if you're only doing 1 deal a month and that deal doesn't go through, yeah, you're devastated. You have no income.
Yep.
But when you have 100+ deals going at any given time, like we normally do, yes, I don't want to lose any of them. But if one of them is lost, it's not the end of the world, and it's not making a noticeable dent in my overall situation.
Gotcha. I wanted to go back to competition,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of gurus, and the goal is to not throw shit at anybody, but yeah, the goal is to not throw shit at anybody, right?
Okay.
Let's try not to. If so, my editor is gonna blur out some names, which the goal is to not, because that's not what we want to stand for here. How do you sort of separate yourself from, say, somebody else that's teaching wholesaling here in Phoenix? Like, what makes Rich rich?
Well, I feel like anything, I only speak on my experience, right? And I only passionately talk about things that I'm, like the things that I know what I know, I will talk about in that fashion.
Okay.
And the things that I think, but I'm not sure, I'll give that disclaimer. You get what I'm saying? So, there's certain gurus that can talk about something that they fully don't believe in, but is pushing some sort of angle that's benefiting them.
I see.
And I'm just not that guy. You
see.
know what I mean? And for me, honestly, I've really taken my foot off the gas on my education business and even my course. Like I promote it way less than I used to. And selfishly, honestly, the reason is I'm spending most of my energy on my team.
I see.
Because, one, a lot of people aren't built for novations. It's just a fact. You know, just like a lot of people aren't built for wholesale, a lot of people aren't built to run a marketing company. You know what I mean? You understand how difficult it is.
Yes, I do.
So I can't be that guy that says, hey, get rich with no money down. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm not going to say something if I'm not bought in on it. So, that's one thing that separates. And then two, I talk a lot about the problems and the difficulties where that's not really conducive to selling courses or being a guru, right? But it's the things that actually helps people.
I see.
So one thing is I always try to lead with value, and really the only people I want to buy my course are the people that are never going to join my team and are never going to send me a deal. Then if you fall into that category, okay, buy my course so at least you don't mess up Novations for the rest of us.
I see.
So that's why I've purposely kind of shifted my messaging, because just transparently, it's so much more lucrative for me to do a deal with someone, and it's a much more irresistible value proposition. I can say, hey, buy my course for $5,000, or I can say, hey, look, I can get you $15,000 for sending me a deal that you're not going to be able to monetize without specialized training. By the way, these deals suck and they're a pain in the ass to do, but we do a bunch of them and we're the best fit for it. Where it's like an irresistible value proposition of you get money for sending us something that is worthless to you.
I see.
Compared to, believe it, and there's a big backlash on gurus right now too, because a lot of people got greedy with it and they're just, snake oil salesmen essentially. And righteously, people are very turned off by that, and I wanted to make sure that I was leading with value and not, I don't want someone to buy my course if they're a new wholesaler either, because it's transparently, you're probably not going to make it. You know what I mean? These deals are difficult. So active wholesalers are really the main people that I target. And that's why my page is mostly, especially when I was selling my courses more, is mostly just me on the phone doing calls. Because if you're not into wholesale real estate, why the
hell are they watching?
You ain't going to watch me. You know what I mean? My page is going to be really boring and confusing for you.
Yep. A final question I have for you, and this is just a genuine question from me to you on the personal side. You're a father of a few kids.
Yeah,
right?
4.
Like 4, right? I'm 19. I don't have kids yet.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what makes a good father? What advice would you give to somebody like me when I do become, a father and have a family? This is a completely selfish question for me.
Well, first off, I think you'll be a great father, man. You're just a genuine good dude.
I appreciate that.
But, knowing yourself is such a huge thing, both in fatherhood, in business. Knowing what you want, what you stand for, who you are, what types of things that you will make a stand and fight against, because it's not only about what you're going towards, it's also the things that you won't tolerate, right? Gotcha. And that's something I learned a lot from my dad, and also my former boss that I learned so much for. That was one thing that he drew the line. But I think a good father is, just loves their kids unconditionally. Definitely having the right life partner is extremely important as well. You know what I mean? That was another big fear of mine, was me and my wife not making it. We've been through ups and downs, you know what I mean, over the years. We're in an amazing place and have been for a while, but there was times where, man, I didn't, things were not looking great. But, starting off with the right person, doing whatever it takes, and just letting your kids be who they want to be. Just coaching them to be the best version of themselves, no matter what that is. Because you don't know. Your kids could want to be a chef. They could want to be a marketing guy. They could want to be an athlete. They could want to be a doctor, or want to be something that, like, we think is like, why would they want to do that? But that's their passion. That's what I think is just setting them up to be the best versions of themselves too, whatever that is.
I appreciate that. And I know that's now I know I said that was the final thing, but I have a tradition on this podcast where I have the previous guest ask you 2 questions, and you get to ask the next guest 2 questions, 2 or 3. We just set 2 because that's what people came up with. And fully transparent, I cannot remember off the top of my head what those previous 2 questions were.
Okay.
Right? So maybe I'm going to forecast it on the next podcast, so apologize for the viewers. But what are 2 questions that you would want to ask the next question? The caveat is you don't know anything about them. All I can tell you is that they're in the real estate space, and they're most likely one of our clients and or partners. And some examples of questions that people have asked in the past are, what do you believe in? What are the KPIs that you track? Who do you go to for advice? So just there's no limit on the question. It's personal, it's business. It's just what questions you would want to ask the next person.
Okay.
They could be big, they could be small, they could be making a lot of money, they could be making 100K a year. Nothing's wrong with that, but still.
I would say number 1 is looking back, what's the one thing, the most important thing that you wish you would have done sooner? So whatever that means to them, the thing that they wish they would have done sooner. And then I would say the other thing would be, when you get to your breaking point, what is it that you tell yourself to get out of that?
For context, the viewers, if they think I'm texting people on the phone, I actually write notes.
Nice.
Because you'll say something and I want to ask 3 different questions. So I have to write them down because I don't want to cut you off. But Rich, it truly means a lot that you've opened your house to me, taken time on your weekend to share your story. And it means a lot to us and hopefully the viewers as well. Where can people find you or even submit deals to work with you?
Yeah. So my main channel is Instagram, and it's at Novation King, just one word. Deals they can submit to novationjv.com.
Okay.
And the link's in my bio.
Okay.
And, I've got a small YouTube channel. I just started TikTok. Really, Instagram, you can go to link in bio, and you can see all the other podcasts I've been on, and everything I got going on is pretty much on my Instagram.
Gotcha.
So that's the best place.
Gotcha. So that's pretty much all I have for this podcast, Rich. It means a lot. Again, you hopping on. If you guys enjoyed this, please do not forget to go follow and possibly JV with Rich. That way you guys can both get paid. And again, if you enjoyed this, please don't forget to comment your biggest takeaways, right? Comment your biggest takeaways, and as well subscribe, right? This is a podcast that I'm doing to really share and interview top successful real estate entrepreneurs in the industry to share their stories, their lessons, their insights. So if you enjoyed it, please comment, as well as subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.